There are places on Earth where the normal rules just seem to work completely differently. A stream of water being thrown right back up into the sky. An area of the ocean lighting up blue with just a tiny movement on the water. And giant smoke rings floating up from a volcano. Some look like they're impossible. Others show the fierce power of the planet. These are the weirdest and most unbelievable natural phenomena on Earth. Horsetail Fall, USA. A glowing red stream of lava falls over 980 feet down the almost vertical rock face of El Capitan. What's flowing down the cliff actually isn't molten rock. This is snowmelt from Horsetail Fall, dyed the color of fire by the sunset. When the sun gets low in just the right spot, the white color of the waterfall starts turning yellow, then orange, and finally glowing red. For a few short minutes, the whole stream of water looks like it's on fire right in the middle of the granite cliff. The firefall only shows up when the waterfall has enough snowmelt, and the angle of the sunlight has to be exactly right. Just a thin layer of clouds or a really weak waterfall is enough to make the firefall disappear completely. Even when all the conditions are met, the brightest light usually only lasts around 5 to 15 minutes before sunset. Vieques Island, Puerto Rico. It's hard to believe that a whole section of the ocean can glow blue just from a really small movement on the water. On Vieques Island in Puerto Rico, the blue light happens because of countless glowing plankton living packed tightly in the bay. When a paddle hits the water, they instantly light up and leave long blue trails behind. A school of fish swimming by is enough to make a moving line of light under the surface. The density of the glowing bugs in Vieques is so high that just about 1.2 gallons of water was once recorded to hold up to 700,000 glowing individuals. When the movement stops, the light trails slowly fade away too, returning the Vieques Ocean back to darkness. Nunagat Waterfall, India. At Nunagat, India, there are days when gravity just doesn't seem to follow the usual rules. Instead of flowing down into the valley, the waterfall gets blown right back up. This happens during the monsoon season, when strong winds from the valley get pushed upward by the steep terrain. They sweep the water that just left the edge of the cliff right back around. From a distance, the whole waterfall looks like it's fighting gravity. The water is only blown backward when the wind is strong enough, and the water flow is just right. When the wind weakens, the waterfall drops down normally again. Sperm whales, Dominica. Sperm whales are the largest toothed predators on Earth. They usually live at a depth of about 3,280 feet in the waters west of Dominica. But there's one behavior of theirs that really caught the attention of scientists. They hang almost completely still in the middle of the ocean. Heads pointing up, tails pointing down. Their whole bodies stand straight up like giant underwater pillars. Each time lasts about 10 to 15 minutes. During that time, they barely react to anything around them. This behavior was recorded in 2008, when researchers accidentally came across a whole group standing still in deep water. Qiantang River tidal bore, China. The Qiantang River tidal bore can create a lot of different wave shapes. Sometimes, a long wall of water rolls upstream like it's cutting right across the river. In other parts, the waves crash into the seawall and bounce back, crossing each other into rare cross-shaped waves. But the strangest sight only shows up when the water pulls back. The strong current cuts into the soft sediment, leaving behind countless branching grooves like the roots of a giant tree. These patterns appear right next to a perfectly straight road built by people. Just a few hours later, the tide comes back and washes almost all of them away. Meeting of the Waters, Brazil. Outside the city of Manaus, there's a boundary that looks almost like it can't be real. On one side is the Rio Negro, dark, warmer, and flowing slowly. On the other side is the Solimois, muddy brown, colder, and dragging along a huge amount of silt from the Andes Mountains. They meet, but they don't mix right away. The two colors of water keep flowing side by side for miles, making a dividing line so clear you can easily see it. The differences in temperature, speed, density, and sediment make the mixing process happen really slowly. Under certain conditions, the two bodies of water can take over 30 hours and more than 62 miles before they actually blend together. Kalahari, Botswana. Out on the dry grasslands, stretching across the Kalahari, a tree trunk has to carry a massive clump of grass. That's the nest of the weaver bird. They build and use this structure together. Inside are countless little chambers. A big nest can hold hundreds of birds and last for decades because it gets constantly repaired and expanded. The chambers tucked deep inside also help block out the brutal Kalahari heat. However, a bigger size doesn't always mean the nest holds heat better. Southwest region, Morocco. In the dry region of Morocco, dozens of goats stand way up high on argan trees, like birds perched in the leaves. The whole herd of goats climbs up argan trees as tall as 26 to 33 feet and stands precariously among the thorny branches. This isn't some weird natural circus trick. It's their survival instinct. When food on the ground gets scarce, they climb up high to find the leftover argan fruits. Their split hooves and ability to balance help them hold tight onto the small branches. After eating, the goats can also spit out the seeds while chewing their cud, which helps spread the argan seeds far from the mother tree. EPB Obitary Reserve, Brazil. Some types of mushrooms in the IP Bio-Beatery Reserve in Brazil can glow green in the dark all on their own. National Geographic once recorded up to 27 species of glowing mushrooms at this reserve. The light isn't from reflecting or absorbing anything from the outside. It's made by a chemical reaction right inside the mushroom cells. A molecule called luciferin reacts with oxygen triggered by the enzyme luciferase. That process helps these mushrooms release energy in the form of green light. Darvaza gas crater, Turkmenistan. An engineering accident in 1971 created a spectacular sight right in the middle of the Karakum Desert. Soviet geologists collapsed an underground cave filled with natural gas, making a sinkhole about 230 feet wide and nearly 100 feet deep. They set it on fire to stop toxic gas from leaking out, and the fire just kept on burning. Methane gas from the layers below keeps leaking up and feeds dozens of fire spots on the bottom of the crater. When night falls, the whole crater glows red in the middle of the pitch-black desert. Thanks to the endless flow of gas leaking up, the fire at Darvaza has lasted for almost 4 decades. KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa. Off the coast of South Africa, thousands of sardines packed tightly together into a dense ball like a single creature. This is how they lower the risk of getting separated from the school and make it hard for predators to lock onto a single target. But that layer of defense also acts as a giant signal in the ocean. Dolphins, sharks, whales, and seabirds quickly gather around. Back-to-back lunges tear the formation apart, making the ball of fish lose its shape more and more. One attack can open the way for the next. In just a short time, the living sphere that seemed impossible to break can completely fall apart. This usually happens during the sardine run, a migration where science still can't fully explain the timing and intensity every year. Mount Etna, Italy. On top of Etna, the volcano sometimes creates an almost impossible sight. Round white smoke rings fly up, one after another, and drift slowly across the sky. Each ring slowly floats up without breaking. The higher it goes, the wider it gets. The whole thing starts when hot gas escapes through a narrow vent. The gas flow rolls up into a donut shape and then separates from the crater. As they fly higher, the gas rings start getting distorted. Some rings get stretched out for hundreds of feet before disappearing. Yanartaş, Turkey. On the side of Yanartaş Mountain in Turkey, fire can randomly burst out from bare rock crevices. There's no firewood, there are no gas pipes. These flames have been written about since ancient times and still show up today. The fires are kept alive by natural gas, leaking up through cracks in the rocks. The main ingredient is methane, a highly flammable gas. Scientists still don't completely understand how the ground at Yanartaş can produce and supply such a huge amount of gas for so long. Some studies suggest the gas is made from reactions happening deep beneath the rock layers. But the exact mechanism is still being studied, and that's exactly what makes Yanartaş so mysterious. Litchfield National Park, Australia. Out in the grasslands of northern Australia, giant mounds of dirt shoot up like ancient towers. They aren't rocks, they're the nests of cathedral termites. A single worker termite is only a tiny fraction of an inch long, but the whole colony can build structures up to about 26 feet tall. If you look at body proportions, that feat is like humans stacking multiple skyscrapers on top of each other. Inside is a complex network that helps swap out air and keeps their living space stable. The crazy part is that not a single termite has the complete blueprint. Millions of tiny actions still put together an incredibly organized structure. Gobustan, Azerbaijan. Right in the middle of the dry lands of Gobustan, volcanoes are rewritten under a different rule. They don't spit out glowing red lava. Instead, cold grey mud constantly bubbles up from little craters on the ground. Gas bubbles swell up, pop, and then leave thick streams of mud slowly sliding down the sides. Right under that seemingly harmless site is methane, water, and material crushed under high pressure. They get shoved up from layers miles underground. Some craters are only a few feet tall, others grow into massive cones in the desert. From afar, Gobustan looks like a place on another planet, where volcanoes don't shoot fire, but make the ground itself boil to a rhythm. Dedvlei, Namibia. Right in the Namib Desert, Dedvlei stands out with a white clay pan sitting between giant red sand dunes. Out on the surface are dozens of camel thorn trees that died centuries ago. The tree trunks are pitch black, bare, and still standing perfectly still in extremely dry conditions. Dedvlei used to get water from the Sorchab River, but when the sand dunes shifted, the water was blocked off and the area slowly dried up. The trees died off when the water source vanished. The humidity is so low that microbes and the rotting process work really slowly. Thanks to that, a lot of tree trunks are still preserved after hundreds of years. Great Plains, United States. Out on the Great Plains of the US, a supercell can take up the entire horizon. The storm usually shows up as a massive, dark, slowly spinning cloud block. Its bottom drops down close to the ground. The upper cloud layers roll into distinct tiers. Inside, the spinning column of air can be up to 10 miles wide. This column of air can reach almost 9 miles high. The updraft sometimes tops 100 miles per hour. That kind of power can hold huge chunks of ice floating inside the clouds. When a supercell rolls across the plains, the sky gets pitch black in just a short amount of time. Lake Kindy, Kazakhstan. Up in the mountains of Kazakhstan, Lake Kindy looks like a made-up place. Hundreds of dead spruce tree trunks are still standing straight in the cold blue water, like a sunken forest that never fell over. This whole thing started after an earthquake in 1911. A massive landslide completely blocked the canyon and made a natural dam. The water rose, swallowing the whole forest standing below. The lake is almost 100 feet deep. Over a century has gone by, and a lot of the trunks are still right where they were. The cold water slows down the rotting, freezing, a bizarre world under the surface. From the shore, Kindy looks like a spooky lake. But underwater, an entire forest is still standing perfectly still, like it's trapped in time. Locust plague. Just imagine a bug cloud so thick and dark that it blocks out the sun. That's when a swarm of locusts turns into a disaster. Just an area of about 0.4 square miles can hold tens of millions of them. Massive swarms travel with the wind, crossing over 62 miles in a day and devouring all the plants in their path. A 0.4 square mile swarm can eat the same amount of food as roughly 35,000 people in just 24 hours. The weird thing is, they don't always live like that. When their density goes up, locusts can flip their behavior and start swarming. From solo bugs spread out all over, they turn into a giant living blob in the sky. Changye Dangxia Rainbow Mountains, China. Over in Jiangye, the mountains look like someone dragged streaks of red, yellow, and blue paint across the entire rock face. But the colors of Dangxia aren't man-made. Layers of sandstone and minerals piled up over millions of years, then got pushed up, tilted, and eroded away. Iron sitting in different mineral forms makes up those bands of red, yellow, grayish-blue, and green. Lighting and humidity change the contrast, making the exact same mountainside look totally different depending on the time. Salmon Run, USA. Every year, Pacific salmon go on a journey that sounds completely against survival instincts. Layers of sandstone and minerals piled up over millions of years then got pushed up, tilted, and eroded away. Iron sitting in different mineral forms makes up those bands of red, yellow, grayish-blue, and green. Lighting and humidity change the contrast, making the exact same mountainside look totally different depending on the time. Manpu-Puna rock formations, Komi. Out on a remote plateau in the Komi Republic, 7 massive rock pillars stand all by themselves, like the ruins of something not built by humans. Manpu-Puna has pillars standing around 98 to 138 feet tall. Roughly 200 million years ago, this place used to be a much bigger mountain range. Wind, rain, freezing ice, and temperature shifts slowly wrecked the softer rock layers. Only the harder rock cores stuck around. The hard part to believe is that millions of years of erosion left exactly these pillars standing almost straight up on a wide open plateau. Massive sandstorms, China. Up in northern China, a bright day can turn completely orange in just a few minutes. A wall of dust rolls across the horizon, eating up houses and streets right in front of it. Huge dust waves form when strong winds sweep up dirt and sand from dry areas into the atmosphere and carry them far away. In 2021, one of the worst dust storms in a decade hit Mongolia and northern China. That dust storm made air quality tank on a massive scale. Danakil Desert, Ethiopia. Deep in the brutal Danakil Depression of Ethiopia, salt lakes can turn a shade of pink that looks almost fake. The water reflects bright tones of pink, red, and orange that pop right in the middle of a land completely white with salt. This color comes from salt-loving microbes growing in environments with insane salt levels. Under the extreme heat, the water evaporates fast and leaves thick layers of salt crystals around the lake shores. From way up high, the pink patches sitting in the middle of the white salt look like the surface of an alien planet. What's crazy is that this glowing beauty formed in one of the hottest, driest, and harshest environments on Earth. Lena Pillars, Russia. Along the Lena River in Siberia, vertical rock walls stretch down the riverbank, like a city built by nobody. The Lena Pillars stand over 328 feet tall and are made mostly of limestone, dolomite, and Cambrian rock layers. This area used to sit under an ancient sea. After getting pushed up, water, ice, temperature swings, and weathering slowly dug deep into the cracks, carving the cliff into thousands of thin pillars. The Siberian climate makes the freezing and thawing cycle super intense. It's wild to think that an ancient seabed, hundreds of millions of years old, is now standing as giant towers next to one of Siberia's biggest rivers. Vatnajökull, Iceland. Vatnajökull is one of the rare spots on Earth where ice and fire exist together in the exact same geological system. Up top is a massive block of ice covering the Icelandic landscape. But right underneath are volcanoes that are still active. Heat from the magma can melt the ice from the bottom, creating hidden water lakes deep under the glacier. When a volcano erupts, the rapidly melting ice can unleash giant floods into the outside world. This exact contrast creates a landscape that feels almost unreal. On one side, you have freezing cold, ice caves, and endless white fields. On the other is heat, magma, and volcanic activity happening right under your feet. Aurora Borealis, Norway. Up in the Norwegian sky, the darkness sometimes gets ripped open by streaks of green, red, and purple light shifting around like giant curtains. The northern lights form when electrically charged particles from the sun get pulled by Earth's magnetic field toward the poles. Once there, they crash into oxygen and nitrogen in the atmosphere and then let off energy in the form of light. Oxygen usually creates the green and red tones. Nitrogen pitches in the blue and purple. When solar activity acts up, the streaks of light can stretch clear across the horizon, bending, twisting, and changing in just seconds. At that point, the whole sky looks like an ocean of light moving right above your head. Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. There are mornings in Rio de Janeiro where the whole skyline is glowing red like it's on fire. When the sun is still close to the horizon, the light has to travel through a longer stretch of the atmosphere. The blue light gets scattered heavily. Dust and aerosol particles keep amplifying the red and orange colors. The mountains around the city at this point just become dark silhouettes against a glowing sky. Rio has actually recorded an even weirder sky before. In 1875, streaks of red and blue light stretched across the sky for about 40 minutes, which was later thought to be a rare type of aurora at low latitudes. Fairy circles, Namibia. Right in the middle of the dry grasslands of the Namib Desert, thousands of round, empty patches of dirt show up with unbelievably even spacing. Each circle can be anywhere from a few feet to over 33 feet wide. They have almost no grass inside, but are surrounded by a greener ring of plants. Some stick around for decades and then disappear, while new circles form somewhere else. The circles keep appearing in an area that only gets about 2 to 6 inches of rain a year. Sand termites used to be thought of as the cause. Another theory says the grass arranges itself to fight for the scarce water. After decades of research, scientists still don't fully agree on what actually creates the fairy circles. Taal Volcano, Philippines. Taal Volcano doesn't just spit out ash. It can literally create an electrical storm right inside its eruption column. In January 2020, ash and steam from Taal shot up over 6 miles high. Lightning bolts started ripping across the sky. At one point, over 70 strikes were recorded in just a single minute. Thousands of cloud-to-ground lightning strikes showed up around the volcano. The cause comes from ash particles crashing into each other and building up a charge. Higher up, water and ice keep forcing the electrical charges apart even more. Nature can create sights way weirder than anything people could ever imagine. Some have been explained by science. Others are still questions without a final answer. But they all remind us that Earth still holds countless secrets just waiting to be discovered. Which phenomenon on this trip do you find hardest to believe? Let us know down in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you can keep riding along with us on our next adventures.